Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
America at Night. My name is Dom Giordano from Talk Radio 1210 in Philadelphia, and we sometimes sleep. I don't know that Congressman Jim Jordan does, though. Big guest, one of my favorites, to lead off Rich's show tonight, because the big, beautiful bill and everything related, but he's got a lot on the judiciary, too. Congressman, welcome to America at Night. It's always great to talk with you.
Yeah, good to be with you, Dom. Thanks for what you do.
Well, Congressman, the media, of course, is scrambling, but I felt better about the big, beautiful bill a couple days ago. I assume there are hurdles now, and there's one matter of clarification I wanted to get with early on. But where are we tonight? What are the hurdles still left? What are you seeing on the inside?
Well, I mean, again, I think, first of all, it's a good piece of legislation, and I always say, you know it's a good bill because the Democrats hate it. And they hate it because it empowers families. It lets them keep more of their tax money. It gives them school choice. It makes sure our border is going to stay secure. And it says to able-bodied people who are getting your tax money, your listeners' tax money, that guess what? If you're getting your tax money and you're in our welfare system and you're able-bodied, you're going to have to work now. Go figure. So I think it's a good bill. It got through the Senate, close, of course, just like it got through the House the first time. It's coming back to the House. And we're going to work on trying to get it across the finish line here tomorrow. But I think it should pass because it does what we told the voters we were going to do.
You underlined one thing there that I didn't want to be emphasizing too much. My fingers are really crossed. I'm a big school choice guy and do a podcast on that, et cetera. And I know that you are too. And Dave McCormick was in the Senate side shepherding it through. As I understand it, it would be about $5 billion. That would liberate a lot of Americans. And it is part of the mentality here for the average American.
Yeah, I mean, that's why the left doesn't like it, because the left thinks, oh, the bureaucrats are smarter than mom and dad. Like, give me a break. I've had in the past, like, someone come up to me, oh, Congressman Jordan, you really think that some parent knows better than some guy who works at the Department of Education here in D.C.? And I go, yes, because at least they know the kid's name, for goodness sake. So, yeah, this is empowering parents, empowering families, empowering Americans, and it's good. Now, do I wish we cut more spending? Of course. But, you know, we got tight margins in both the House and the Senate. You got to get the votes cobbled together as best you can and move forward with what we told the voters we were going to do, and I think this bill does it.
Now, Eric Schmidt on Twitter and Charlie Kirk, this has gone back and forth, Congressman, they seem to be indicating that people that are here illegally would not be getting Medicaid. My understanding is that's somewhat true, but maybe not. Clarification on that, on the Medicaid and illegals.
No, good point. I feel like I think the parliamentarian pushed that back, and so it's not as good as we would hope. This is one of the frustrations that I think many of us feel is the Senate rules and the power the parliamentarian has in order to avoid having to get the 60 votes and the complicated sort of arcane rules they have over there. Now, some of that's good. I understand that, particularly if in those situations where we're not in the majority, you don't want the Democrats just doing all kinds of crazy left-wing things. But, yeah, I think that's been set back, and that's unfortunate. But it doesn't change the fact. I always say to my colleagues, any one particular thing of this bill that you would take out, would you vote for separately if it was a bill just on tax cuts, renewing the tax cuts that were put in place 8 years ago? Yes, you'd vote for that. Would you vote for school choice? Yes, you would vote for that. Would you vote for work requirements for people who are able-bodied in our welfare system? Would you require them to work before they get the benefit? Yes, you would vote for that. Would you vote for the resources, putting resources forward to make sure our border stays secure? Yes, you would vote for that. So any one of those single things you would vote for, but somehow when it's in a package, because it doesn't get everything else accomplished that you want to get accomplished, somehow you're going to vote against it? I just do not follow that, and I think in the end it's better if we vote for this bill and move on with what we told the people we were going to focus on doing.
I think that's sound advice. I got to tell you, I'm right next to New Jersey. I'm not far from New York, as you know, where we probably could have, and I agree with the president. I think this guy's a communist more than a socialist, and yet in the bill the Senate went along with this, and they actually put in increases for the state and local tax deduction of 40,000. Then it goes up, and I know that's gotta be. I think I hear your point. I still would vote for it, but boy, I don't think that's ever going to come out at some point in the future.
Yeah, they lowered. They went from taking it to 40,000 and keeping that for 10 years. The Senate dropped it down to 5. I agree with you. It seems to be rewarding states who got a high tax burden. But again, I go back to the fundamentals. We got a few vote majority in the House, a few vote majority in the Senate, and many of the people who put us over the top and gave us the majority in the House come from Long Island and New York and California. It's just a fact of life. And so, I wish we had a bigger majority where we wouldn't have to do that. We didn't have to do that in 2017 when we did the tax package. We lowered the SALT deduction, but in order to get it through, we gotta raise it. And it's unfortunate, but it's part of the deal you have to do to get the votes.
Let's turn to your day job, judiciary and the like. And I see all kinds of things, and I don't think we focus in on it enough. Of the movement you guys are. I see that you subpoenaed somebody who used to be at Pfizer, for example. Yeah. So we're still trying to get a reckoning on COVID. The auto pen, we're still trying to get a reckoning on President Biden. Give me top of mind some of the things you're doing.
Well, no, specifically on the Pfizer issue, we had a guy there at Pfizer who, when he left Pfizer after the 2020 election, he goes to another drug company, GSD, GlaxoSmithKline, and while he's there, at the end, after the 24 election, he says, I think I need to be transferred because I'm concerned that the Trump administration may find out that we slowed up the results, slowed up the testing on the vaccine prior to the 2020 election, and they did so for political reasons. So he conveys all this to a person at GSC, and they get nervous about that. They end up letting the guy go. They actually reported to the district, Southern District of New York, the prosecutor there, and then it gets our attention. So we start investigating. It looks like that's the case. So we actually subpoenaed this individual. We want to talk to them, and I think the bigger picture on that issue is everything that happened. It seemed relative to COVID was a lie. The government told us all kinds of things that weren't true, and now we have this on top of it. So think about it. The government said it didn't come from a lab. It sure looks like it did. They said it wasn't our money used at the lab. Yes, it was. They said it wasn't gain of function being done at the lab, that kind of research. Yes, it was. They said vaccines work. They said the vaccine can't be, not that. They said the vaccinated can't transmit it, and the vaccinated can't get it. Both of those were wrong. They said masks work. They said 6 feet was social distancing was based on science. Just on and on. So it's part of that whole problem. So we're gonna investigate that and see what we find.
A big story tonight where I am, and I think nationally, Riley Gaines is a favorite of ours. University of Penn not only says no more transgendered athletes like Leah Thomas, but critical to me, and I know you're a big sports guy, they're going to take away, as I understand it, the records of Leah Thomas and the young women I have on, Riley and the others. That's really important to them.
Yeah, this is common sense. Remember, President Trump says this all the time, Dom. We're the party of common sense. The Democrats are now the party of the crazy left. And every position the left takes is crazy. It's crazy not to have a border. It's crazy to defund the police. It's crazy letting men compete against women in sports. It's crazy to blame the riots on President Trump when he sends in the National Guard to stop the riots that the left created. You can just keep going. So God bless this decision by Penn. This is common sense, and it's a fairness issue to women athletes who train and work so hard, trying to chase down their goals and dreams on the athletic field.
Absolutely. Congressman, I know a very busy day. Really appreciate you coming on. Always welcome in Philadelphia.
You bet.
And tomorrow, you think it's possible there could be a vote tomorrow? Is that possible?
I hope so. So. I think there will be a vote on the rule, but let's hope that not only the rule, but the actual final passage as well.
Let's hope so. Congressman, thank you very much. Have a great Independence Day.
You too. Take care.
All right, there's Congressman Jim Jordan, the guy right in the center of the action, and I didn't do much of introduction because I wanted to go right away to him on a big day. Look, he's inside it. I have objections to a lot of these things. Could I vote for it? The SALT thing. That means state and local taxes, $40,000 plus a year, the Senate now says, and the House. It comes out to $40 billion to each of the Republican congressmen's districts that are inside these zones where progressives rule. New Jersey, New York, California, Illinois, that kind of thing. All right, let me give you the phone lines. A lot to get to update you on. Jim Jordan just gave us some of it. 833-482-5337. 833, the number 4, Valdez, V-A-L-D-E-S, here on Rich's show. Always thrilled to sit in for Rich, particularly an enormous news day here with the big, beautiful bill. In Iowa, we're going to talk with someone this hour. Idaho, the prosecutor in that egregious case, the massacre of those college students in Moscow, Idaho, says, no, we can't guarantee we'll get a conviction for death penalty, so we're not going to follow the parents, and we're just going to suddenly say life imprisonment. We'll get to all of it. Dom, with an M, D-O-M, Dom Giordano, sitting in for Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, it certainly is America at Night with Dom Giordano, happily sitting in for Rich tonight. We just heard from Jim Jordan right in the center of it. And you can hear the frustration. You can hear the things that are in here that make it very difficult to say one way or another whether to vote to pass this. I mean, if you don't pass it, it's disaster for Republicans in this. And particularly, I would say they have to pass it before July 4th. They'll start dithering, and we go off in 1,000 directions. Now, we have some sound here. Here's Jamie Raskin. Here's the guy Jamie Raskin is from Maryland. He is the guy that Democrats go to as a so-called constitutional expert. And I think he's a really smart guy, but he's incredibly partisan. Listen when he's asked the question, well, Congressman Raskin, what about the fact this bill gives no tax on tips relief to those that this would benefit tremendously? And if you're one of them, we'd love to hear from you. Here's Raskin's response to the no tax on tips.
I was asking you about no taxes on tips, which is part of this bill for working people who work on a tipped wage. Do you support that?
You know, I haven't looked seriously at it because I haven't thought they were serious about it. Tips are income, and I would prefer just to have a much more progressive income tax, so people who are making a lot of money are paying more, much more like happened under very conservative presidents like Nixon or Eisenhower, than to give people the kind of symbolic consolation prize of saying we're not going to tax tips. I mean, tips are income. I suppose that it's difficult to record them and to keep track of them. So I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but I think that it's a major distraction from what's really gone on, which is that the GOP has destroyed the idea of progressive income taxation in America, which is the more money you make, the more you should pay, because you get to draw more resources from society.
All right, here's the thing, buddy. You know it. He's a smart guy. I think people listening right now, my show in Philadelphia, Rich's, anywhere, we're not caring about tearing at this and then all that money's going to come back to us in government programs. People making tips would rather keep more of their own money, and they'll figure out, versus the government figuring out by taxing somebody else progressively. Free them. I want to free everybody listening every time on every tax that we can. We are overtaxed beyond belief. So you may be listening and say, well, but I'm not getting a break on this. We're all in this together. We'll try to liberate as many people as we possibly can. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, somewhat no tax on Social Security, up to a point. Did you hear what he said there? What he's saying is, no, you would rather tax some rich guy or woman. You'll feel better about that, and more of it will come back to you. How? Why? Through the war on poverty, through the swamp in Washington. They're going to send it back to you. Wouldn't you rather keep more of your own money? Now, here's Elizabeth Warren in her vehicle as she takes off from today's big, beautiful bill vote. And she's taping herself. The visual's unbelievable. Her staff is. as she's breaking up and crying because of this policy. Here's Warren.
Senate now, at the end of the vote, when the Republicans won, they cheered. They cheered over taking away health care from around 17 million people. They cheered over giving huge tax breaks to a handful of billionaires. They cheered over running up the national debt by another $3.5 trillion. You know, this bill, it's bad. It's bad economically. It's bad morally. This bill is just wrong. But we stay in the fight. We stay in the fight. We stay in the fight. And we proved why we stay in the fight, because actually there are pieces of this bill that we got better. We got the tax on solar and wind knocked out, and that's going to help with clean energy. We got a few different pieces and made them better. So that's reason number one. It's always the reminder. All of those calls mattered. Reason number two is it's still not over. The bill has now got to go back over to the House. And there are a lot of Republicans who are feeling really squeamish about this bill at this point. So that means we got to stay in the fight. And reason number three is, yeah, they may do this now, but come November 2026, they're going to have to face the voters. They're going to have to face the people, the families of the people whose health care they took away. And they're going to have to explain exactly what they just did just now on the floor of the United States Senate and whatever they do next. So this is hard, but damn, we stay in the fight. We stay in it, not because it's an easy fight, not because we're guaranteed to win every time. We stay in it because it's the right fight.
All right, there we go. Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, all right, after Raskin. We stay in the fight, all right? And we're going to see about this, if this bill passes. By the way, as we get into it later on tonight, Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich. I have no problem if the communist, and that's what I think he is more than a socialist, is elected mayor of New York. Because I think if he is, that guarantees we win, Republicans win, conservatism wins, common sense wins in the midterms. Because every Democrat asked about this guy doesn't know what to do. The woman running for governor in New Jersey in a tough race, Mikey Sherrill, says, well, I may not like everything, but I support his goals. He wants to defund the police, have communist-style grocery stores. She's having to pay for that. So if he wins, that is going to be a win if you're on the other side. All right, coming up in Iowa, we have this situation. Idaho. Why do I keep saying that? Idaho, which I think is a relatively conservative area where these college students were murdered. The guy that everything points to has gotten a plea deal now. No death penalty. The prosecutors, are they rogue prosecutors? Are they those progressive prosecutor types? We got a special guest to break this down next. It shocked the families. I think it shocked America. What do you mean, no death penalty in Idaho? And we'll get to your calls. 833, the number 4 Valdez. Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich Valdez on Westwood One.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
It absolutely is. Dom Giordano. Follow me on Twitter at DomShow1210, sitting in for Rich tonight. Special guest coming up. We'll talk with a former prosecutor about what went on. Here's a little bit to give you what's been going on today in the case in Moscow, Idaho, where you had those college students massacred. We have a prime suspect. The families want the death penalty. America says we want the death penalty. Are these rogue, those progressive prosecutors in Idaho? Here is a bit of analysis of what happened.
From the state of Idaho once again, but on a different story, as News Nation has just learned that the accused killer, Brian Kohberger, accepted a plea deal. Yeah, a plea deal was offered, and he has accepted the deal. Sources are confirming that prosecutors proposed dropping the death penalty. That was the deal in exchange for Kohberger pleading guilty to committing 4 murders and pleading guilty to burglary as well. So guilty plea in exchange for no death penalty. Now, the background on this story, you'll remember he's accused of killing those 4 University of Idaho students at their home. It was back in November of 2022. Sources say Kohberger must also agree to spend the rest of his life in prison without any possibility of parole. So jail for life. No parole, but again, no death penalty. Must waive his right to appeal as part of this as well. Plea deal has been accepted. A court hearing for a change of plea will take place on Wednesday, so in 2 days. So this is just breaking. They'll be covering it in more detail tonight on Elizabeth Vargas Reports and also on Banfield.
All right, Dom Giordano here with you, and joining us is Charles Cully Stimson, Deputy Director of the Edwin Meese III Center for Legal and Judicial Studies at the Heritage Foundation, and the author of the book right here, right on point, Rogue Prosecutors, How Radical Soros Lawyers Are Destroying America's Community. Charles, welcome back to America at Night. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I was very surprised by this. You know, I don't follow it, the horror of it, but once it keeps on getting repeated, and the guy was here in Pennsylvania, kind of lost track, but it seemed that the evidence would be sufficient here. Were you surprised by it, and what do you think's going on with these particular prosecutors?
Well, first off, I wasn't surprised at all. I've written about this case. I was a homicide prosecutor before. This was not a whodunit.
Okay.
Yes, it was a substantial circumstance case, but they not only had his DNA from the scene. There were several eyewitnesses, and they had cell site location information and video of his car going back and forth on the road. So, I mean, you can't ask for much more circumstantial evidence that points in one and only one direction. And so, I did not think it was a whodunit. And you're never going to get to the why he done it part in a plea deal. That's not required. And so, having been a defense attorney too, I'm not surprised that they convinced their dude to plead guilty and take the death penalty off the table. So I think this is, for seasoned litigators like me, this was sort of an inevitable end.
It is, even when, you know, Idaho is relatively conservative. The family clearly, you know, was kept out of this or unaware of this and wants the death penalty. That's the part I'm trying to get to. Why would they do it? They have the upper hand here in a place like Idaho. Why not go for the death penalty? Yeah.
Look, death penalty cases are hard. They're hard because you're going to ask the jury not only to listen to the gruesome facts of these horrible murders of these beautiful young college kids, but then once they find him guilty of a death-eligible offense, then to sit through the entire aggravation case of the prosecution and the mitigation case from the defense, and then have to render either the ultimate verdict or come down with life without parole. And, you know, the amount of appeals that come from death penalty cases where the judge imposes the death penalty go on interminably.
Well, let me interrupt, Charlie, though, and say, you probably tell, I'm a death penalty guy.
I am too.
Okay. Well, they've won then. If a case like this, and based upon your expert analysis of all the elements they have with this guy, if they can get away doing this, and the families are vocal about this, at least the ones I saw today, then they've won. We essentially in America, maybe in a few states, don't have a death penalty.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that.
Okay.
27 states authorize the ultimate punishment, plus the U.S. military, which includes the federal government. Mm-hmm. You know, the number of executions last year were 25. The peak since the Supreme Court reinstated the death penalty in 76 was in 1999 with 98. And Idaho has only 9 people on death row. California has 616, and you're right there. They have the death penalty on the table, but they're not using it. And I don't know how long it takes in Idaho to get from trial to conviction to appeals to the ultimate execution. But these things take forever. And by the way, in states that require you to consult with the victims, there is no state, and by the way, every state requires you to consult with the victims in every kind of criminal case. No state requires the prosecutor to follow the victim's desires no matter what. Yeah.
Well,
so a lot of this is sort of the relationship you build with the victims as the prosecutor over the course of these trials. And by the way, there's no victor. There's no sense of victory in these murder or rape or horrible sex abuse cases. The damage is done. So the question is about justice, and the question is eventually about closure. And there's no one going to be happy with this case, no matter how it was going to turn out, because the damage was done.
Well, I am really good friends with Maureen Faulkner, Mumia Abu-Jamal, an infamous case, and he might get out, given our rogue prosecutor, as your book talks about, Larry Krasner. And she doesn't have closure. I've talked to a number of people. We just had another big case in Philadelphia, and they said that they believe they would get closure from the death penalty.
Well, yes, but the officer's dead. That's my point. And so it's not like a tort case where you can put the victim back in the place they were before the tort by compensating them with money. And so my point is, and Uncle Larry is one of the worst of the worst. That's why he dedicated a whole chapter to Uncle Larry. And by the way,
he deserves three or four. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, the criminals call him Uncle Larry. That is their nom de guerre of this guy, because he's their best friend. And all these guys are pro-criminal, anti-victim, cop-hating zealots, and Larry is exactly that. And he's a slick, serpentine speaker. He's one of the worst of the worst. But he's going to, the same thing that happened to him is going to, the same thing that happened to George Gascon and Chester Boudin in San Francisco and Kim Fox in Chicago and the rest of them is eventually going to catch up to Uncle Larry, because you just can't run from the law and run from not enforcing the law forever. And eventually the voters will wake up and smell the coffee. It's just taking too long in the city.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great book, Rogue Prosecutors, How Radical Soros Lawyers Are Destroying America's Communities. But you don't see that here. That's what I think in Idaho.
No, this guy's not a Soros-funded or inspired prosecutor. He's a straight mainline prosecutor. And this was a horrible case, and the guy's going to die in prison, which is where he belongs. And if they'd gotten the death penalty and it was carried out, that's what he would have deserved. Okay. So either way, these families have lost loved ones, and it's terrible.
Absolutely. Charles, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
All right. I still am more. I believe that they have won on the death penalty. When you do aggravating and mitigating, to me, it's not about did you kill two people, were they nice? It could be a big mouth like me. You kill a person in cold blood, first degree murder, wherever you are, and you deserve the death penalty. And I feel seeing those families hearing the victims today. I'm friends with Maureen Faulkner, an infamous case that's international, and they feel they would get closure by that. Plus, what about the deterrent effect? Now, he had the stats right there. The numbers are minuscule of people actually getting the death penalty. Why? We have better DNA evidence, and I believe if you are on trial for your life, we should get taxpayer expense, the very best lawyer. You don't get any guy that you look up in the yellow pages or anything. You get the very best lawyer imaginable. And then if you're still convicted on that, you have a few appeals, and then you get the death penalty. These parents were in shock. And again, they're told, well, look, you want to go through all these appeals? I think they'd rather do that. Knowing that this guy's alive, knowing what he did, and knowing, I don't care who says what, at some point they could get out. I'm still convinced Mumia Abu-Jamal might get out. We've seen stuff like this. All right, you can get in right now. Coming to your calls next. Again, when I saw it today, I didn't think it was a rogue prosecutor thing, as much as the other side has the upper hand in this, even in a state like Idaho. Charlie just said they have had only 9 people there on death row or put to death. And that seems to be a law and order state. 833, the number 4 Valdez. Get you to me. Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4Valdez. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
That's Dom with an M, Dom Giordano from Talk Radio 1210 in Philadelphia, sitting in for Rich tonight. Let's go to Todd, Atlanta, Georgia, WGKA. Hello, Todd. Welcome in.
Hey, Dom, thanks for taking my call. I was calling about the taxes and everything, and I remember the tax cut under the first Trump administration, and everybody in this country who got a paycheck got a tax cut. It wasn't for billionaires and millionaires. And, tips are gratuities for doing a good job. Working overtime means that you're trying to get the job done, and you're, understaffed, and you're busting your butt. And you got politicians like, Ratskin from Maryland, and he wants to stick his hand in the tip jar. He wants to put his hand in your pocket.
Yes, beautifully put. That's right. He thinks you're going to say, oh, I'm going to have a better play gym out there for my kid from Washington versus give me my own money.
Right. I mean, and it's our money. You make a great point. It's our money. And these are the people that have created $37 trillion in debt. And it's not government debt, it's our debt. It's on our heads, and then they have this smug attitude about, blah, blah, blah. They make me sick, man. I mean, it's almost like it's an organized crime syndicate in D.C. They don't care anything about us. They just enrich themselves. Look at everything Doge is exposed. Look at all this money going out the door. Nobody knows where it goes. Somehow it ends up back in their pockets, through their NGOs and their foundations and their donations to their campaigns. Yep. So, it's I'm so glad they're being exposed, and I hope the Republicans stand strong and give us a real bill, not a deep fake.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, thank you, Todd. Have a great 4th if we don't talk again. You're right on. Yeah, that's why I played you that Raskin cut. He's getting tips. Tax on them. Well, that's a gratuity, and I favor a more progressive tax. What that means is he favors taxing. You'll feel better if they tax somebody wealthier, and then that money is going to come back to you through the government. Versus, no, you're going to keep more of your hard-earned money. Look, they don't like it because their instincts are not like Trump's. No tax on tips. Remember that during the campaign? He's in Vegas, and the waitress says something to him. I've seen it with Trump up close. When an idea like that gets in his head, he springs into action. And it's going to happen. Just like no tax on overtime. We want people to work overtime if they choose, to get ahead, to progress the country. Well, we don't want that. We just want a progressive tax, meaning you'll feel better if the wealthier are taxed, and that money somehow or another is going to slide down to you, versus you're keeping the money, and then you're going to decide how to spend it, what to do with it. Isn't that a much better decision maker, despite the guy in New York who would say, oh, no, you can't make that decision. Jim Jordan, who was on the show tonight, mentioned school choices in here. Every time I've sat in for Rich, I've mentioned that. It's only about $5 billion, but that's going to free up a lot of kids and parents, and they know a lot better about what they want to do with their kids' education, their kids' background, their kids' school. They want to be freed up, like the wealthy are in this country, to make, to some degree, that kind of decision, to get away from the indoctrination. That's exactly what's in here. I don't like certain parts, I'm being honest. I'm not going to move past them. We're going to take some Americans off Medicaid because they refuse to work or volunteer 80 hours a month that are able-bodied. And I'm on board with that. But I can't tell tonight, and Jim Jordan, we were a little bit fuzzy. Will someone who is here illegally still be able to get Medicaid? I think they can. That's my understanding during these two bills. So how is it Americans might be taken off, and rightfully so, but illegals can get Medicaid? All right, more coming up. Jump on board 833, the number 4, Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich Valdez all across America, America at Night. So Todd and I were just talking. I wanted to play it for you one more time. It's worthy of it. Jamie Raskin, one of the key Democrats from Maryland. You often see him most aggressive, January 6th, constitutional stuff, impeach Trump, get Trump out. Here's what Raskin said tonight when asked about something that puts Democrats in a box, people that are making their income off tips. What does Raskin think about no tax on tips?
I was asking you about no taxes on tips, which is part of this bill for working people who work on a tipped wage. Do you support that?
You know, I haven't looked seriously at it because I haven't thought they were serious about it. You know, tips are income, and I would prefer just to have a much more progressive income tax, so people who are making a lot of money are paying more, much more like happened under very conservative presidents like Nixon or Eisenhower, than to give people the kind of symbolic consolation prize of saying we're not going to tax tips. I mean, tips are income. I suppose that it's difficult to record them and to keep track of them. So I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but I think that it's a major distraction from what's really gone on, which is that the GOP has destroyed the idea of progressive income taxation in America, which is the more money you make, the more you should pay, because you get to draw more resources from society.
How do you get to draw more resources from society because you're making more? And it's symbolic. People looking at this guy going, are you kidding me, buddy? Take your hand out of my tip jar. Take your hand out of my what's left on the table or whatever. Take your hand out of the credit card. The person's hopefully being generous here. No. How do Democrats not get that? Well, I haven't thought too much about it. Maybe you ought to think about it. Maybe just envy, let's get this person. Our life is going to be better if we get them. I would just put it simply. Which way is your life better? Having a guy like this trying to go after someone else and tax them, or you keeping your money right up front and taking that home and deciding what you're going to do with it. They can't win on this. And they don't want to give in and say, all right, let's try to get some of the credit here. We've always been for working people. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime. We want to go with that. Nope. They can't do it. I haven't thought about that too much. That's symbolic. Imagine this guy standing there talking to somebody trying to wait on tables, and I've only worked in a bar once. It's not easy work, particularly when it's tip-based. You have to be good, and sometimes people are not so generous for one reason or another. And Jamie Raskin is saying, oh no, I'll decide. You're going to see under Raskin, don't worry about those tips. We didn't get tipped tonight, but Jamie Raskin went after that billionaire. All right, kids, you need braces? Jamie Raskin is on it. Go and get those government braces. He's going to help you with that. All right, my name is Dom Giordano. I am sitting in for Rich Valdez, America at Night on Westwood One.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Okay, it's Dom Giordano from Talk Radio 1210 in Philadelphia, pinch hitting for Rich tonight. Special guest. She is reported to be maybe the leading candidate to run for governor in Pennsylvania. She's the state treasurer, Stacy Garrity, to talk about the big, beautiful bill. Josh Shapiro is our governor, and I would say I still think he's the odds-on favorite to be the Democrat nominee. He's their sharpest, even though I differ with him on just about everything. So we'll do that. But a big development today, promises made, promises kept with President Trump, was late in the day. The University of Pennsylvania, one of the 3, 4, or 5 leading Ivy League schools, under tremendous pressure, says they will be removing Leah Thomas's records, and they appear to be on their website, and restoring titles to female athletes who were impacted by her participation. No, I have to say his participation in women's sports. So under this agreement, they say to comply with Title IX regulations and recent executive orders related to transgender athletes in women's sports, restoring all titles and records, and taking away Leah Thomas. The updated records on Penn's website have been updated to show other athletes holding the top times in Thomas's freestyle events, with an annotation noting that Thomas's records were set under previous eligibility rules. Now, where Trump has to go with this is the NCAA. Put the pressure on the corrupt NCAA to get them to remove Leah Thomas and what Leah Thomas did, etc. Riley Gaines is a frequent guest on my show in Philadelphia. Paula Scanlon, the young woman who got hit in the face in the volleyball thing, the former high school student we've had on. And again, this is just one more page. Why won't Democrats give up on this, even though they're dying on this hill? The Trump campaign spent about $40 million on this issue during the campaign. All they come back with is, why are you so concerned about this? Okay, then change it. Stop doing this to women. But this is a biggie. Even though only one school here, even though there's all kinds of stuff going on with this is a biggie because this is one of the major schools. I'd say top 10s as far as clout, power, endowment, and all that stuff. And for them to roll over and capitulate here to common sense and to actually agree to take away Leah Thomas's records, that's a big deal. A very big deal. It shows progress. It shows that this is going to continue. And it's the best of both worlds. We're making progress. We're winning on this. And at the same time, progressives are refusing to give up on it. And what I often have said, sitting in for Rich, my own show, what it did in the election is not just trigger people who usually vote. This took people that were apolitical. And it somewhat drove them to say, I'm going to vote against this. I'm going to vote against the party. I'm tired of hearing this stuff. What do you mean you're going to let this happen? This is ridiculous. People love sports, where I am, sports capital in Philadelphia. They're not going to go for this type of stuff. So this today is just another push forward. Now we're going to see more female athletes come out. Any number of them can't be canceled. Will they use this as the impetus to say, you know what, this is right. I've had enough of this. We just can't continue with this fiction. What in the world is driving it? I interviewed on my show a young woman in Ohio who's the daughter of Lee Smith, who's a Hall of Fame relief pitcher. Very few relief pitchers in the Hall of Fame. And I believe she was doing the 100 and the 220, maybe the Olympics someday. And yet she lost to the 27th and 30th ranked male runners who identified as female. They were mediocre. And on Good Morning America, they said, well, what's your advice to this, the daughter of Lee Smith? You got to train harder, honey. They didn't say honey, but can you imagine? Imagine you may have a daughter. I have sisters that participated in college sports, driven, competitive, all the good stuff that men used to get. And then suddenly they have to go through this. Has the Democrat Party learned their lesson? No. They still give signs. They want to fight it out on this. They still think this is a winner. Saw an interview with Leah Thomas, still going down that path. Well, Penn said, no mas. They gave up on this. And I remember at Penn, because we're close, I'm not too far away from where I am right now. These young women were told, if you speak out, if your identity's out there and you come out against this, you will be ruined because of the internet and all that. You're not going to get a job. And this is only a few years ago. Look at the progress that's been made. Why will Democrats seeing that? It's because they're afraid of their radical base, and their radical base wants this. They're also afraid of these people, trans activists, who are often just driven beyond belief to come at anybody who sees this as nonsensical, particularly if they're a Democrat. Those are the reasons why they won't give it up. The university says is taking steps to address Thomas's records, but we don't know with the NCAA. So the NCAA has got to be next. And again, if it's such a small thing, why in the world would Democrats fight so hard for this and call names and say you're a bigot and the stuff that I said is just wrong? What's wrong about it? We know the advantage that males have, even mediocre males. It's an obvious thing. There's a talk show out there, Clay Travis, who said, I think he has said he'd bet $1 million you could take the winning state male basketball team any year and you would beat any team that you want in the WNBA. And I believe that's the case, particularly if it's like in California or something. You take the high school team that wins the state championship. Now, I don't know if they would beat the WNBA All-Star. Or can you picture someone like LeBron James? He's past his peak, but name who you want, who's pretty big in a WNBA game. Do you think they could hold him under 100? I think LeBron James would score 100 if he wanted to against any WNBA player at any time. What are they going to do physically with him? You'd be afraid for their health and safety. So why continue this? Is that what it takes? Do we need to get a male player identifying to go into the WNBA? They would probably stop it, yet they say they're all for this trans stuff. Leah Thomas was a unicorn. I remember when this happened, it was ridiculous, but we're finally seeing it be wound back. All right, special guest coming up, the treasurer of the state of Pennsylvania. Really someone who is on top of the nuts and bolts of this. What does the big, beautiful bill do when it comes to tips and all these other things that are involved? Josh Shapiro, who I think would have won Pennsylvania if they had tagged him in, the governor of Pennsylvania, the last time as VP. He's that strong of a candidate. How does he play this? Well, and also, apparently Josh Shapiro's caught up in $1 million in taxpayer money for perks at the recent U.S. Open at Oakmont. $1 million? I love golf, and Oakmont might be pricey. That's a hell of a lot of cocktails. What were they spending it on with $1 million? She'll break all that down. We'll come to your calls in the big, beautiful bill and everything else. 833, the number 4, Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations, actually. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Hey, Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich, who is a rising guy here. It's always thrilled to sit in for my friend Rich Valdez. You get to us, a lot on the table we've already put out there at 833, the number 4, Valdez. Hopefully we'll catch up with Treasurer Stacy Garrity in Pennsylvania on that and a couple of other things, too. One thing before I take any calls, though. This is 58% this is kind of the annual July 4th stuff that you get. Gallup is pretty reliable on this. Only 58% of Americans, a record low, say they're extremely or very proud, not even extremely or very proud to be an American. Just 36% of Democrats say they're extremely or very proud to be an American, joined by only 53% of independents. That's a new low for both groups, and only the second time Democrats' pride has slipped below 50%. 92% of Republicans say they were extremely or very proud to be an American. Here's the thing, and I said this in the annual question when it was the Biden era. And Biden, as we knew then and now know even more, was not even in charge. The inflation rate, the nonsense in Afghanistan, on and on and on. But the question's not about who's president. The question is a given. This is the greatest nation in the history of the world. And there may be times when we go down a little bit, but that doesn't mean it's still not the greatest nation in America. Well, I'm always proud to introduce the treasurer of the state of Pennsylvania, Stacy Garrity. Treasurer, welcome to America at Night. Dom Giordano sitting in. Stacy, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Dom. So happy to be with you.
Well, the big, beautiful bill. You have the green eye shades on when we've talked with this. How do you see this playing out? What's the upside, or any things that you still want refined a bit more?
You know, I think this is just such a huge win for all Americans and Pennsylvanians. I mean, you know, there's so much in it. It's a lot to unpack, but the largest tax cut in history for middle and working class Americans. And then just to boil it down to Pennsylvanians, no tax on tips. And, you know, there are over 500,000 Pennsylvanians that work in restaurants. No tax on overtime. And, you know, we have millions of Pennsylvanians that work in jobs that have overtime. No tax on Social Security. We have 2.6 million Pennsylvanians over the age of 65 that qualify. Gosh, permanent increases in their child tax credit. 3.3 million families in Pennsylvania. And then, of course, my favorite, unleashing domestic oil, natural gas, and nuclear power. Right now we have over 100,000 jobs in Pennsylvania. And, you know, we have so much tremendous opportunity for growth in that space.
Without a doubt. Now, Josh Shapiro is a national figure, is a bit, he's cleverer than Jamie Raskin, treasurer we've been playing tonight, the guy from Maryland, who said on the no tax for tips, how does that help people? What you need to do is have a big progressive income tax, then the government will help people.
Well, of course, that's what they want. And I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, I looked at Josh Shapiro's press release, and he's worried about, you know, wind and solar, which is ridiculous, 26,000 jobs when we have the potential for tens of thousands of jobs if we just unleash the liquid gold under our feet. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And then, you know, talking about all the Pennsylvanians that are going to lose Medicaid and SNAP, and that is, again, ridiculous, because let me be clear, no one is coming off Medicaid that's supposed to get Medicaid. That's just not true. And,
absolutely.
You know, look at Bill Clinton, had more work requirements that we have in the one big, beautiful bill. And you know what? Did you hear any Democrats having an issue with that? Nope.
No, it helped Bill Clinton a lot, that deal. Something else, too. Josh Shapiro, who, again, I think is their best choice, even though I differ up and down the line with him. On the Democrat side, $1 million in taxpayer money somehow or another for perks at the most recent U.S. Open?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they had a contract for $2.1 million with the USGA, but, you know, you and I previously talked about this. So I went to Oakmont in my old private sector life, and the people in the tent I was in said, you know, the governor has a tent 2 doors down, and are we paying for that with taxpayer dollars? So I looked at it, $265,000. Now look, I am all for economic development. And if that brings money into the Commonwealth, that's fantastic. But what I do know is that taxpayers don't want their tax dollars spent on hospitality, especially right now when we were spending billions more than what we bring in. That's just a non-starter. And I went into their hospitality suite, and, it was all employees and lobbyists. So I'm not sure how that's going to bring economic development into the Commonwealth.
Yep, absolutely. One other major area, too, as people get to know Stacy Garrity, we know you in Philadelphia. You are a military person, retired colonel, the deserts of Iraq. And one of your big things, and this is so meaningful, you have found and restored, sent back to either the families or somebody, the missing military medals, decorations that people have earned.
That's right. So as a veteran, returning those is so near and dear to my heart. And so far, we just crossed a major milestone. We've given back over 500 military decorations since I took office. And, when you think about it, we get those mainly done, this from abandoned safe deposit boxes. But every military decoration or dog tag or whatever was precious to the veteran is a symbol of their sacrifice that they made and their family made, to protect our freedoms. And right now, we're coming up on Independence Day, the 4th of July. And so it's incredibly meaningful. And so I will never stop looking, for the veterans or their families that are in these medals and get them returned.
Absolutely. And again, we really thank you for that. Also, you are somebody in touch. People forget how rural Pennsylvania is with rural Pennsylvania. Do you see anything in the bill that is really going to doom health care in rural Pennsylvania?
I looked at that, and I really don't, because, yes, we have too many rural hospitals closing, that's for sure. But even dumping all the money that we've dumped into it hasn't changed that trajectory. So no, I don't. And when you look at the big, beautiful bill, they actually increased money for, rural hospitals. But I think it was from 25 to 50 billion over the next decade. So that's going to help as well.
Absolutely. Well, good to have you on America at Night. We'll be talking again very soon.
Great to be with you. Yes.
Thank you, Stacy. Have a great 4th of July. And again, thanks for your continued service, particularly to veterans.
My honor, Dom, and thanks for having me.
All right, there is the Treasury Secretary in Pennsylvania, which is a hotbed, $1 million or thereabouts at Oakmont with Josh Shapiro. Remember that name, Josh Shapiro. This guy is the Democrat killer politically. And we may see a hot race for governor. She may be one of the candidates in Pennsylvania doing that. All right, my name is Dom Giordano. I'm sitting in for Rich Valdez. You're listening to America at Night on Westwood One.
The truth for America at Night is Mr. Rich Valdez. I'm telling you, Jim and Larry, be damn proud of you, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano, Dom, D-O-M, sitting in for Rich tonight. Follow me on Twitter at DomShow1210. Let's take some callers. Paul in Boise, Idaho, streaming. Hey, Paul, thanks for the wait. Go right ahead.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, the community is still kind of rocked between the 4 murders of the college kids and then the decision without talking to the parents of the slain kids about taking the
Yeah, and the attorney we have on is a guy I really respect, but I really differ, Paul, as you can tell. They've won on the death penalty. If we can't win on the death penalty with this guy, so what if there's going to be continued appeals? I think these parents say, ultimately, we know what's going to happen here. He has no right to live his life in prison.
Well, yeah, free, and he'd still be able to correspond with his parents.
Right.
And maybe, who knows, maybe he's going to get some kind of a degree while he's in college, become a superstar in the library there, and start getting guys out of prison early or whatever. You know what I'm saying? He's got a life he can still live even though he's behind bars.
Yeah, Mumia Abu Jamal is the guy. He's celebrated internationally. Cornell, I think it was, paid $250,000 for his writings and his records. He murdered a cop in Philadelphia 45 years ago, and yet that torment goes on. So, no, these prosecutors, I'm shocked, Paul, that Idaho, which I think is common sense law and order, would do this.
Yeah. Well, they've got the death penalty. There's no mistake about that. But what happens is it gets twisted up. I was on a death penalty case back in 1991. It took us 31 days to reach a verdict, and it was unanimous. And the individual in question, we found them guilty of first-degree murder. And we could have given them a life in prison, but we decided not to do that. And he ended up killing her husband and 2 kids.
I hear you. Yeah. Thank you, Paul, very much. Look, they won on this. And again, when I was talking with the attorney tonight, he brought up, and he wasn't condoning it, but this aggravating mitigating. There should be no aggravating or mitigating with the death penalty. If you kill someone under the requirements of the law in that state, or the federal, fitting first-degree murder. It's not about, well, you didn't get a pony for your birthday, or you only killed one person, or you killed a person who was not an all-star person. You killed a big mouth versus a saint. None of that matters. It's the life. It's the idea of life. And the other thing that matters, how is there ever going to be a deterrent effect? And you know what this does with other cases? They say, oh, we'll tell the parents anything. And the parents are obvious. So we are making people in families who want the death penalty that there's something psychologically wrong with them. They're the bad guys. They're the bad people. They're bloodthirsty. They just want this to be over with. Well, there'll be appeal after appeal. Well, maybe we're going to reform that then. Maybe it becomes ridiculous. But if we just say, okay, you have life imprisonment. This was an obvious case. The evidence, obvious. Chris in Newburgh, New York, WGHQ. Hey, Chris, welcome to the show.
How are you tonight? So if this big, beautiful bill passes, there's going to be a number of Republican congressmen that they're going to lose their jobs in the midterms, and the Republicans will definitely lose control of the House, and maybe the Senate, maybe a little less likely.
Well,
but
what do you base that
on? Well, millions of people losing their health insurance. But Congressman Mike Lawler, based out of Rockland County, New York, he will lose to Orange County State Senator James Skoufis, who would be able to beat him anyway head-to-head if Skoufis, you don't have to live in the district, but if Skoufis just buys property 15 or 20 miles south of where he lives now. But Mike Lawler's a guy that comes on CNN. He goes on a lot of networks that would be considered more Democratic-friendly networks for interviews, and he's been rather invisible lately the last few weeks or month or so. So I
wouldn't bet that, Chris. We have no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. We have big tax cuts for the American people. We have school choice in here. I have a list of 50 positive things. The people being, taken off of Medicaid, do you know what the requirement is? You're an able-bodied male. You have to volunteer or work 80 hours a week. Do you think that's a good requirement?
Yeah, getting back to the point I was making, in Rockland County, there's a large Hasidic population, and they vote in blocks. so in Orange and Rockland County together. And James Skoufis is already more popular with that group than Mike Lawler is.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. James Skoufis here on this national show. I'm writing that name down. James Skoufis. There's something about the name. That guy sounds. How could you vote, Dom, against James Skoufis? Oh, man, let me look at my Funkin' Wagnalls here and see if I can look up James Skoufis if he's listening. This guy's going to run for president at some point. Look, it's tough to be a Republican win in California. Well, maybe Orange County's possible, or in New York, where we have several of them. I get that. We did give them the salt tax, which I'm against. I'm against this philosophically. Look at in New York. Why should we give a break? Do you know the Senate bill is even worse than the House? It's $40,000 they can take off. When New York, the odds are, is going to elect a guy who's probably a communist. Why should we continue to fund that? Well, you have to, because these people are living behind the Iron Curtain. Well, I hate to say it, they're either going to have to change in the state and win, which may happen in Jersey with Jack Ciattarelli, or they are going to have to move. Should we continue to bail out people in progressive citadels like Massachusetts, Jersey, New York, Illinois, California? I'm trying to think if there's another one that fits here. But that Skoufis guy, he's coming along. All right, let's go to Don in Worcester, Ohio. WHIZ. Don, welcome to the show. Hi.
Okay, I got two comments. One about the budget that nobody's talking about. If they can prove that Biden was never in office, he doesn't get his $400,000 a year the rest of his life, would he?
What do you mean prove he was never in office?
Mentally, he was never running the show.
Oh.
So he don't deserve his retirement. Yes or no?
Well, that's going to be fairly difficult to prove to take it away for him, but I would consider it, sure.
Okay, now second, and I heard over the weekend the demonstrations at Dodger Stadium trying to get them to stand up for the immigrants. If the ball players don't stand up for a man playing in a girl's sport in high school and college, something is wrong.
Well, you're exactly right. Thank you, Don. Well, what's wrong, too, is big-time female athletes. Big-time female athletes, Serena Williams, still, I think, might be the most powerful, the one that couldn't be canceled. That's one that jumps out. The WNBA is pro this trans athlete stuff. Can you imagine what would happen to their league with 2 or 3 males that said they identify as female and they're playing in that league? They wouldn't know what to do. It'd be over. We are winning. We're winning 2 ways. We're winning these daily battles like the University of Pennsylvania, but Democrats are not going to give up. And I told you the 2 reasons why. They're afraid of the trans activists and the sort. And 2, the base of their party thinks this is bigotry, what we're talking about. They're going to die on that hill. If they continue to do this, it's the ultimate political loser. Not just because it's close to 85% of people that are against it, but it inspires, it triggers people who are a bit apolitical. They go, what? You're for that? Where do I vote? All these other issues, we're engaged with the big, beautiful bill. Some Americans, if you said that to them, they don't know anything at all that's happening with it. But you tell them, and they've seen it, men in female sports, this kind of thing, dominating, they know about that. They get nuts over it. Well, they shouldn't, the Democrats are saying. All right, you get on board at 833, the number 4, Valdez. You can get in. And again, what happened with the University of Pennsylvania? Harvard is duking it out with Trump on any number of issues. Penn saw the lights, and I'm surprised when they negotiated, not only do the women get their names in the records, and they won't do this again in Title IX, but Leah Thomas gets expunged as far as holding the records. I didn't think they would do that. And that's important to Paula Scanlon and others I talk about. Why? They're competitive. It's the best of it. And what happened here, we're not expunging her records, we're expunging his records. I've been through this with Riley Gaines, etc. And it's a good day. And Penn, I'm glad they're showing a reasonable attitude here with pressure from Trump. All righty, 833, the number 4 Valdez. That'll get you on board America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
Kind of at the heartbeat of America. You sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
It certainly is. That's what we love. That's why we do it. Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich tonight. We mentioned Harvard and talking about Penn and Leah Thomas. Here's a little bit summarizing what's happening now between Harvard and President Trump. As I said, Penn's capitulating, at least on this, and a little bit surprised. They're reasonable. They get it. It's a loser. And even giving up Leah Thomas, getting rid of the records. I thought they'd say, that's petty. We're never giving up the Leah Thomas records. We're proud of them. Now we have to get the NCAA. Here's a little bit of the breakdown, though. Trump administration ratcheting up the pressure on Harvard.
The Trump administration has concluded after an investigation that Harvard University failed to protect Jewish students from harassment. It has threatened to cut all federal funding from the Ivy League school if it fails to take action. A letter sent to the university on Monday said that Harvard at times was a, quote, willful participant in anti-Semitic harassment of Jewish students, faculty, and staff. Much of the investigation's evidence focuses on campus protests over the Israel-Hamas war. It accuses Harvard of imposing lax and inconsistent discipline against students who participated in the encampment, noting that none was suspended. Harvard President Alan Garber has acknowledged problems with anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim bias on campus, but he says the university has made strides to fight prejudice. This is the latest intensification in the White House's battle with Harvard. The university lost more than $2.6 billion in federal research grants after rejecting a list of federal demands calling for sweeping changes to campus governance, hiring, and admissions.
All right, there you go. The latest with Harvard. Let's go to John, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, WRNN. Hi, John.
Good evening, sir. I'm telling you, man, there are so many aspects of your show that I'd like to comment on. I did say whenever I talked to your screener that it's about the taxation and the big bill. But, you know, the thing is, we're used to being taxed. We just want to make sure that the money that we give you, the government, goes to us first. And then if there's anything left over, giving it to people that are in need or something, or other countries. But we don't mind being taxed as long as we know where it's coming from and that we're not padding some rich politicians.
Okay. Well, John, let me interrupt. I'm not just wanting to argue, but I do mind being taxed because I don't care what they think they're going to do with it. I think that John and Dom know better what to do for our families and our money. So even if it's something I don't think is corrupt, I still am skeptical of it because we are overtaxed even without the corruption and what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, what I'd like to know is what are the pork that's in this big bill that, you know, I'm so tired of it. You know, it's become a buzzword. It's been a buzzword for a long time, but pork is a lot of things. You know, building a $1 billion train or building a bridge that goes to nowhere. Remember that?
Sure.
You know, the bridge went to nowhere. That's pork. That's patent. You know, the thing is that money is going into some politician's pocket. And we hired or elected Trump to clean up this mess that's been going on for the last 30 or 40 years. And he's trying to do that. and all we get is a bunch of words from politicians as to why it's not the best. I lost respect for Rand Paul a long time ago because he doesn't, he's not a good politician.
All right, thank you, John. Thank you. Look, I respect Rand. He's a friend. I'm not saying he's right in this. He's a purist. And again, in this bill, are there a lot of things? The biggest objection, we're going to let people in these states that are brutalized by Democrats take $40 million off of their insurance. All right, coming up, more of your calls. And where I am in Philadelphia, we have the first strike by a major union in the last 40 years. I'll tell you what the union, somebody just sent me, what's happened here in Philadelphia due to this union strike. These are the people that pick up trash, they're 911 call operators, etc. But we'll continue to take your calls here too. Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich Valdez. Follow me on Twitter at DomShow1210 in Philadelphia. Always great to pinch hit for Rich. Be doing it again tomorrow night. And this big, beautiful bill tomorrow is a big crunch day. Jim Jordan we had on at the top of the show tonight. And my read is he thinks this is going to be pretty difficult in the House. It's possible to vote on this tomorrow and to reconcile with the Senate. If they don't get this on the president's desk by July 4th and they start the dithering, Trump knows that, then what's going to happen is this is going to break open, getting them back, going through all this again. It's ridiculous. And I take the caller's point. The big, beautiful bill, it's got stuff in there I hate. Medicaid for people here illegally continues. The SALT thing, $40,000 because these people are under progressives. They get to take on their federal taxes. There's a lot of upside. The tax cuts are upside. The money for ICE is upside. Where I am in Philadelphia, as I mentioned, 39, 40 years since the last major strike by the workers for the city. And the libraries just got closed because of safety concerns. We are in a situation where this is a union that collects trash. We're the center, allegedly, for July 4th, the most historic area. And we may have trash all over the city, so people are told to take it to collection points. And when the people that were collecting it tried to dispose of it, the union showed up and had locks. And they locked the gates so the guy couldn't get in after he came out, who was in charge of it. So if you see this in the news in Philadelphia, it is getting heated, to put it mildly. The thing that's unfortunate that's going on with the big, beautiful bill, though, Elon Musk saying if this passes, saying the next day or so, he's going to start a third party, the America Party. Is Elon Musk serious? Does he really think the average Republican is afraid of Elon Musk spending a lot of money in a primary for a candidate against him versus President Trump coming after you? I think Musk has convinced himself way out of bounds to what his power is. All right, we'll have more on that. Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich Valdez on America at Night on Westwood One.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hey, Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich tonight and tomorrow night from Philadelphia. And my friend, he comes on in Philadelphia, and every time this guy goes after liberals, the pomposity, the whole thing with the smirk, the eye roll, better than anybody. Scott Jennings, who has really pumped up that 10 o'clock show on CNN, really got it moving. And I have spoken with him. I knew he had an upcoming book, but thanks to the research staff here at America at Night, the book, A Revolution of Common Sense, How Donald Trump Stormed Washington and Fought not just for America. This is a very precise, smart guy, for Western civilization. Western civilization. He could have said America. That's all true. America first. Western civilization. In a few minutes, Scott Jennings will be with us, and we'll break down what's happening with the big, beautiful bill, etc. Now, with the big, beautiful bill, before we take more calls, several things I want to get into. One, Elon Musk, all right, had the partnership with Trump, commendable, Doge, etc. But Elon Musk is going off the rails here, seemingly thinking that this bill is not what he went to Washington for. Okay. And if it's passed, his threat is to form a third party called America. Now, there are people in America itching for the third party. All my time in talk radio, I've seen this. The itch they have to scratch for third parties. And they just don't work. Usually they're off the rails. Usually they're nuts. It's very hard to get traction against the other two parties. Why is that? People say, well, I hate the Uniparty. I hate the Republicans. I hate the Democrats. But Trump has come inside the Republican Party, and it's just a vehicle for Trump. He's not your typical Republican in any way, shape, or form. That's one. Two, I want to play this. I'm going to ask Scott about it. Jamie Raskin, the congressman from Maryland, Democrats' point guy on January 6th stuff, constitutional stuff. You've seen him if you watch cable at all. He was asked tonight, as the big, beautiful bill is going forward, well, what about this tax on tips? Surely, Congressman Raskin, you're a progressive. You have to be in favor of taking the tax off tips. He dismisses it, and then he says what is the core of their thought. It's only symbolic. In other words, you got to be kidding me. This is the most popular thing in the bill, by the way. I know people are going to say, we bring on politics. Oh, the tax cuts. Yeah, I think this is the thing that's most popular in the bill. That appeals to your mind, the macro. But what's the micro? No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, sort of no tax on Social Security. If you're an American, as we head toward July 4th, you got to be in favor of no tax on tips, right? Listen to Jamie Raskin.
I was asking you about no taxes on tips, which is part of this bill for working people who work on a tipped wage. Do you support that?
I haven't looked seriously at it because I haven't thought they were serious about it. Tips are income, and I would prefer just to have a much more progressive income tax, so people who are making a lot of money are paying more, much more like happened under very conservative presidents like Nixon or Eisenhower, than to give people the kind of symbolic consolation prize of saying we're not going to tax tips. I mean, tips are income. I suppose that it's difficult to record them and to keep track of them. So I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but I think that it's a major distraction from what's really gone on, which is that the GOP has destroyed the idea of progressive income taxation in America, which is the more money you make, the more you should pay, because you get to draw more resources from society.
All right. Let me translate that for you. Think of you're listening and I'm coming beneath you, like a closed captioning. What he's saying there is you're going to feel better if they're taxing wealthier people, whatever that definition is, and then that money's going to sluice back to you through the wise hands of government, progressive government. That's exactly what he's saying there. Versus if you make tips or overtime, you'll get to keep that money. In what universe, other than with Democrat crazies, is that a winner? The average person listening right now, is that a winner? If that's a winner to you, give me a call, 833, the number 4, Valdez. I got a quick fun thing, too. Then we'll get to Scott Jennings coming up. My producers are antithetical to cash, not carrying cash. One's about 25, the other about 30. The other day, Fox Business had this story of the 25-year-olds in that range, roughly. Bartenders complaining because they run up a tab. They open a tab, and then after they get the drink, they want to close the tab and pay for it then and then reopen the tab. And it was a whole big thing. And I just asked, well, and they're paying by credit. They're paying by some kind of card. Can you imagine? I need bartenders out there. Are you noticing this? How hard is that? Why are people against carrying and using cash? Cash is king. Name a situation where cash, you got that in cash, is going to help you. I bet Scott Jennings carrying $50 in cash right now when he comes on. At least that. I think he'll be on my side on that. Here's how you get in. 833, the number 4, Valdez. Scott Jennings, fresh off of CNN. I'll find out what happened there. He's got a big book coming out, The Western Civilization Part. And I'll ask him about Jamie Raskin, and we'll take a ton of your calls. 833, the number 4, Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Thanks for what you do. You have so many people. You ask the questions that if the viewer had a microphone, they would ask that question, and you seem to always ask it right at the right time. So God bless you, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, we're saving the best for last tonight here. Dom Giordano pinch hitting for Rich. Fresh off some side-splitting stuff on CNN. Joining us is Scott Jenkins here on the Rich Valdez Show. Hey, Scott, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Dom. Thanks for having me tonight. Yeah, we had a wild one tonight. It was as fun as always.
So, coming off the big, beautiful bill, we've been playing Jamie Raskin. I don't know if you guys played it, Scott, but if you happen to see it, you can riff on it. Raskin was asked about the no tax on tips, and he said he hadn't looked at it much, but when he does, essentially, why would people want that versus a much more progressive tax rate for working people? That way, they'll benefit.
Yeah, I was actually on set when Casey Hunt interviewed Jamie Raskin today. Look, the reality is what Democrats are generally arguing for here is for all these tax cuts to expire. So whatever they're talking about in terms of a progressive tax rate, this or that, if you vote against this, you're allowing all of the tax rates to go back up to pre-2017 levels. That means everyone who works and pays taxes in this country would get a tax increase. And on top of that, the Trump idea, which was very popular on the campaign trail, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, that's in there. And so I think Democrats are actually in a little bind on this because it's popular. Look, to say no tax on tips, I mean, it's wildly popular.
It's
and
wild.
Democrats now, because Trump proposed it, as you know, their ideology is, well, we must be against it, even though in this case it's going to kill them to be against this, but that's exactly how they voted today.
Scott, let me ask you, though. I've never held office. I think when you're a talk radio host, you're predisposed. It's all the things we've said. You've said enough, too, now, Scott. 40,000 hours for me, 50,000. That might be 100,000. Who knows? And I would have a lot of trouble. I see the wisdom of what you're saying, what's in here that is the goal. But the SALT tax stuff of $40,000 and it goes up. Some of the stuff on Medicaid between the House and the Senate here. Is there anything in here, if you were voting, that you think would be almost impossible to swallow, or is it big enough that you could swallow it?
Well, look, this is a reconciliation bill, which means it's largely a tax bill. So some of the ancillary stuff that I may not like, I would swallow, if only to keep the tax cuts in place, because if the taxes go up in this country, it'd be economically devastating. That's number one. Number two, the SALT stuff, I hate. I don't live in a high-tax blue state. I hate the idea that we're effectively rewarding poorly run, high-tax blue states with this payoff. But when you're doing big bills like this, sometimes you got to effectively buy off, some of the people who represent districts in those states, and they need the votes. So tactically, I understand it, but I do hate it. On the Medicaid piece, look, I think Republicans are in the right on this. Number one, according to the CBO, there's about 5 million able-bodied people in this country who choose not to work, who are getting Medicaid benefits. Everybody listening has to get up and go to work in order to get their health care and, take care of their life. Why do we have to pay for people who choose not to work? It's their choice. You can choose not to work, but why do we have to pay for it? Number two, there's like 1.5 million illegal immigrants on there. Number three, there's duplicates on there, people who are signed up in multiple states. This program does have waste, fraud, and abuse, and there are able-bodied people who need to get back in the workforce. Welfare and Medicaid was not meant to be a lifestyle. It was meant to be temporary for people who actually need it, and I think it's being drugged down by people who are gaming the system. So if I'm Republicans on this, I'm leaning into this Medicaid reform. It is needed.
Absolutely. Now, preparation, Scott, because I didn't see it. We've talked about it. You have a new book coming out, and the staff here says the title is A Revolution of Common Sense, How Donald Trump Stormed Washington. And here's the part that I really like, that I would emphasize, and fought, you say, not for America, but he did, but for Western civilization. That's a lot of thought in that. Talk about that title.
Well, I've chose the title of Revolution of Common Sense because the president used that phrase in his inaugural address, and it was brilliant. And that's really what gave me the idea for the book. But this idea about fighting for Western civilization, I mean, if we don't get this right, if we don't get the fundamental principles on which our culture and society has been formed, on which America was built, we're not going to be around to argue about all the rest of the policy stuff. We have to get this right. And you look at what's playing out in the world right now, on the streets of America, there are people out there who fundamentally want to tear down Western civilization and who think the American founding was rotten at its core. They'd like to tear it out root and branch and install other ideologies, terrible ideologies, and we have to stop them. And I think Donald Trump right now and others are leading this fight. Whether you like it or not, that's what's going on between the right and the left in this country. And I think the left has largely become an anti-Western civilization movement, and we have to recognize it, we have to name it, and we have to fight it.
Yeah, I don't even know if Trump names that, but his instincts are exactly toward that. And by you naming it, that's the first thing, Scott, I thought of with this. And this is a real insight. One other area, too, Elon Musk threatening a third party with this. How do you see that going?
Well, I don't like it that Elon and President Trump are at odds over this bill because I like them both. And when they teamed up in 2024 to win the election, I saw that as two powerful guys teaming up to save Western civilization. And so I think if you believe what I believe, which is that the two sides in politics are pro-West and anti-West, I still think they're both on the same side of that line. I will say I interviewed Elon for my book. He cares deeply about the fiscal health of this country. He believes America is going bankrupt. He thinks something needs to be done about it. I mean, this is a deeply held view. And by the way, he's not wrong. Something does need to be done about it. It's not all going to happen in this reconciliation bill, but it does need to be looked at by the Republicans in Congress. You know, you look at the federal budget, only 21% of it is now discretionary. The rest of it is entitlement spending and interest payments and other things that we have to do. It's not going to be easy. It will take years to unwind a nearly $40 trillion debt. But is Elon wrong? Of course he's not wrong. We're on an unsustainable course. I just think you're not going to solve that in this particular reconciliation bill. It's going to take years, and it's going to take a lot of different kind of legislation to do it.
Are you going to go back and add a chapter? The gift that I can't tell you for talk radio, I don't know for, Scott, your commentary, but I would put it in the book. If this guy becomes mayor of New York City, I think he is more of a communist than a socialist. And he's a guy who's calm about the things he says, which is even more, you know, he's not revved up. We all do at an event. You get a little wild doing it. He's calm in the things he's talking about.
Oh, yeah. He's the most competent communist running for political office in America. And communist is right. I mean, he literally uses the phrase, we must seize the means of production. Yes. If you've heard that before, it's because you learned about it when you learned about the Bolsheviks who took over the Soviet Union. And so normally you read it in a history book or you hear some stoned kid in your dorm when you were in college using that phrase whatever. But he's literally out using the phrase of the communists, seize the means of production. He's talking about taxing people based on their race. He's talking about emptying the jails of violent criminals. He's talking about defunding the New York City Police Department. I mean, I live in Kentucky. I assume we're going to see some New Yorkers on their way to Florida driving through because he will literally destroy New York City with this communist ideology. And Trump called him a communist today, and he was exactly right.
He exactly is. Where do we find all things Scott Jennings? And you can pre-order the book at this point?
You can. Go to Amazon, type in Scott Jennings, A Revolution of Common Sense. You can pre-order it. It comes out November the 18th. It'll make an amazing Christmas gift. It has a great cover photo of Donald Trump. Find me on social media on X at Scott Jennings KY. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok and other social media platforms. But I would really appreciate it if you go to Amazon and order that book because I think it's going to be great. The president participated. Lots of cabinet members did as well. I got to hang out with the president a little bit. It's going to be a great book about the first really 100 days of this administration when the president had the most active period, I think, since FDR.
I'm ordering right now during this next break, Scott. And the Western civilization, kudos to you. That really hits the mark. You know, anybody could have said America. It'd still be a great book. You have access to the president, Musk, etc. But the Western civilization part, we're not going to win that battle unless we call it that and prosecute it in that manner.
100% correct. And I think Trump as our president and as the leader of the right is on the front of that. I think Elon Musk has called this out. It's about the future of the West. Are we going to take care of our country? Are we going to take care of our values? Are we going to have babies? You know, what are we doing in the West to make sure that our society and our civilization endures versus anti-Western ideologies that, frankly, I think the barbarians are at the gate all over this world. And the more we talk about it, the better off we'll be because I don't think America will stand for it when they see what it really, really means.
Thank you, Scott, very much as always. Pleasure.
Thanks, Dom.
All right, there is Scott Jennings. Can't do any better than that tonight. Get the book. It is Western Civilization. Just put in Jennings on Amazon, and you'll be able to find it. I'd love to get your reaction to what he said about Elon Musk in this, President Trump, and it is Western Civilization. It's not just America. And this guy in New York, he's talk radio heaven. When you have a guy, all right, somebody gets worked up, Bernie at an event, they say something unfortunate. Okay, all right, yeah. This guy's calmly telling you he's a communist. There is no doubt. All right, my name is Dom Giordano. I'm sitting in for Rich Valdez, and you can get to us at 833, the number 4, Valdez, 833, the number 4, Valdez. Your reaction here on Westwood One.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Yes, with Dom Giordano pinch hitting. I can't get enough of Scott Jennings. I know it's CNN. You might not like it, but boy, what he does on that 10 o'clock show, he's really lifted the ratings. And the new book, I commend it to you, the Western civilization part of it. Not just America. That's what this is about. That's what they're attacking, the barbarians here. All right, Jane is in Saratoga, New York. WGDJ. Hey, Jane, welcome. Is Jane there? All right, Jane, go right ahead. All right, let's go to Bill in Green River. Bill, welcome to the Rich Valdez Show.
Let's say that you're in a lobby at a major office building, and there are only two people in the lobby. One of them is there to kill the other one, and what you see is 5 or 6 cameras that catch the murder from every direction that you can possibly catch it from. of course, you've got all this video evidence. So you arrest the guy in the video on the video that obviously killed the other person, and you take him to court, and you prosecute him, and you play all the videos as many times as you played the Rankin audio, and consequently, you wind up this. There's no question who killed this guy, and the guy is prosecuted, and the guy is convicted, and the guy goes off to jail and is executed. Then, after the guy is dead, then you have this geek that shows up on the scene saying, hey, I was paid to Photoshop all those videos, and I have the original video. Anybody want to see the original video?
So Bill, we've heard all this before. Come on now, give me a break.
Dead.
Give me a break. Thank you, Bill, very much. You want to continue to go down that path? Oh, my God. You're killing an innocent man. Stop it already here. There's no innocent man here. This guy took the plea. He knows why he did it. The evidence is overwhelming. That's what we have courts. We have appeals. You're not going to get by with some elaborate plan. Why? Why would someone frame this guy in this case? Stop it already. The only problem is they win on this. And if you don't have the death penalty, and I mean a death penalty that you actually use, what ends up happening is you're going to have more and more murder. Again, my rules are top-notch DNA evidence. You get the best attorney that deals with death penalty cases, a budget that allows them to have people like OJ, even if necessary. I'm talking millions of dollars. If you're on trial for your life, that's what you get. But just saying, oh no, we don't need the death penalty anymore. Really? Look at it in this case, by having the death penalty in Idaho, where they might have done it, the guy pleaded to life. If you don't have it, an effective one, not a fake one, then you're going to see more and more trials. You're going to see more nonsense. All right, Tom in Michigan City in WLS. Tom, good evening. All righty, Tom. Tony, I know, is there in Montreal and WVMT. Hey, Tony, how you doing tonight?
Tom, I'm here, and I'm listening to you, and I'm listening happily. And Dom, I'm always glad to know that you're taking the reins and doing a great job for the right in America. And I just want to say a couple of things. It's Canada Day today, and we're wishing our friends in the United States happy Canada Day. And we're so kind to you guys that our Prime Minister, the carny huckster, he capitulated on his 3% tax for all of your internet companies. So we gave you a Canada Day gift worth in the billions of dollars.
Well, thank you.
Dom, it's worth in the billions of dollars because our Prime Minister, who was talking tough to the Canadian electorate, saying that he was going to put Trump in his pocket, he was going to tariff Trump, he was going to defeat the big ogre, he capitulated like a pup tent that I put together and take apart when I go into the Baxter Main Park. He capitulated like a folding tent. He was hiding under the table when he gave Mr. Trump. He's afraid of what's called gunboat diplomacy. That's the new doctrine. It's not the Monroe Doctrine anymore. It's the Trump Doctrine. Power, politics, pressure, peace gets Trump what he wants. And that's the Bismarck. We have no permanent friends. We have no permanent allies. We only have permanent interests. And America has a permanent interest to be exactly what Scott Jennings said. He is going to be lighting the candle for Western civilization.
Yep,
because if
I'm glad you picked up on it.
Barbarians
Yep.
are there.
Exactly.
Tom, these barbarians, they're in your country, the sleeper cells and these crazies in universities that are talking about that. And they're always being pontificating because they have the support of the Schumers and the AOCs. You know, if America is so bad, you know, how did Schumer's wife get this job in New York City from a governor that was Cuomo, who was a Republican, that she became a czar for the traffic department? She got fired because she was terrible. Then she became a vigilator for a university where she got her master's at the same time as she was employed. So talk about gravy train. And this guy Schumer, why don't we talk about him coming out of Harvard? A big zero. He didn't earn his living like Dom Giordano did by going on radio and making himself a wealthy person because you earned it. No, he got it. He's now worth $26 million, and the only job he ever had, Dom, was being some pontificating propagandist in Washington. Now he's got 26 mil. But how did he get that? And how did his wife get a job?
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Thanks very much, Chuck Schumer. Oh, God. And the other guy with the super P or whatever the guy was tonight. Thank you, Tony, as always. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know he was worth $26 million. Scott Jennings' book, I commend it. Pre-order here. Love having him on when I sit in my own show in Philadelphia. He's the best out there. It's the wry smile. It's the take apart of this. And look, I hear the common sense of what he said too. The big, beautiful bill, getting it over the finish line, the tax cuts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm telling you, it's more and more to swallow here of the things we've laid out tonight. We'll see tomorrow. I'll be back on for Rich tomorrow night. Whether or not there's any uptick, or do the people in the House somehow or another massage this stuff so some of it's not so bad. But overall, this is a big deal. And this book we talked with Scott about, that title is very key. Not America, of course America, but America is the one that has to save Western civilization. You can't rely on the Europeans to do it. They've lost their way. They may want to. They may not want to be overrun. I mean, we're seeing it with vast numbers of migration. And again, in some countries, it appears they've lost their national identity. Assimilation doesn't exist. People come there for work. France was an example. So this book is really aimed at that. And to get President Trump and Elon Musk, wow, that's powerful stuff. So love to get you back on board. 833, 4, Valdez. I haven't spoken with Lance in a while. Lance in Galloway, New Jersey, WOND, where I broadcast from many times. Hey, Lance, welcome to Rich's show. Hi.
Hey, a gracious good evening, Dom. Good to hear your voice. You're like a cheesesteak wit all the time when you're on, filling in for Rich or somebody else. But
thank you, Lance, very much.
That's the way. Listen, the big, beautiful bill, they got this $400 billion that they're going to extend if you're a solar panel or a green energy thing.
Yeah.
Still pushing
Still
that
will
thing.
not give it up. Right.
And the thing is, we just heard about that friggin' Crescent Dune project in Nevada that was over $1 billion from Obama, and that went bankrupt. It's like Solyndra all over again. It's like a revolving door of stupidity when it comes to these big companies that, flash in the pan, the newest thing, solar panels. But as far as I know, the sun is only up 12 hours a day, a couple of days a year. So
well, and where you and I are, Lance, our dear Jersey Shore with the boondoggle of the billions of dollars, and they're still trying to put these monstrosities, these windmills, off the Jersey Shore. And some Republicans cave on this stuff. It's amazing.
The big thing that's really about the big scam is the fact that Exelon or Atlantic City Electric, they're buying their energy from the various states around us because they shut the Beasley Point plant and everything else. So everybody, I just tried to get solar panels, right? Nothing wrong with it on the roof. Now I find out that the capacitor, the feeder capacitator will not take any more homes in certain regions in South Jersey because they don't have the infrastructure laid out with the electric conversion. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're damned if you do. And the BPU, that's a revolving door of favoritism. And, what are you going to do with you got schmucks running the train, and the train's on the way to hell. So, Dom, it's good to hear you. You're the tuning fork to truth.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Lance. The tuning forth of truth. Thank you, Lance. Love Lance's call. On the road to hell, let's have a drink. All right. Hey, get in that call tonight, though. Boy, we've had great guests on, great stuff. The big, beautiful bill, the no death penalty in Idaho, Scott Jennings laying this out. 833, the number 4, Valdez, Valdes. That's how you get on board. We'll get in as many calls as we can before the final gong. And again, in that title, Western Civilization. That's what's under attack. This guy's sharp, very sharp. I don't know if he's going to run for the Senate in Kentucky, in the McConnell seat. That may happen. I'm not sure if Laura Trump's going to get the nod to run in North Carolina. She seems to be the right of first refusal, but Trump needs to win North Carolina for the Senate. So would Laura Trump win? I might get into that a little bit more tomorrow night. All right, it's 833, the number 4, Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
God bless you, because literally I think you represent, the new voice of America. What you say is what people are listening to.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
That is right. It's good to be sitting in for the new voice of America. Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich tonight. Jane in Saratoga, New York is back with us. Hey, Jane, thanks for the effort. Go right ahead.
Thank you, sweetie. I want to tell you a happy story, okay?
Okay, sure.
About refugees and people trying to get in. My husband was from Poland, and his aunt lived in Poland. And when the Nazis took over, she and another lady escaped. They had a 3-year-old child and a little baby with them. They were running and down by the water, and they heard troops coming for them. They ran under a bridge, and the baby started to cry, and the lady held her baby under the water and let the baby drown to save the other 3 of them. When my husband's mother, she joined the gypsies, and they got her to a place where she got a boat to the United States. God love her. She worked in New York City as a waitress. I don't know what kind of tips she got or how much they were taxed. She worked her little tail off all of her life. Every single year until she died at 104, she had us take her to the Statue of Liberty.
Oh, boy, that is a great story.
She would stand there and cry and blow kisses and thank God and the Statue of Liberty for letting her come and be free.
You know what, Jane? That's a story. Thank you for that. I'll try to emphasize that in my own mind, at least. We ought to be thinking about with July 4th on the horizon. Thank you, Jane. Yeah, you hear in talk radio over the years, one of the great parts of it, you'll hear people sometimes, not Jane, but others call in with a bit of an accent. And they'll tell you what it meant to get to this country and the opportunity that they see. And back to Scott Jennings' books. Well, how is it that we have generations, hordes of people that don't see it that way? They don't see America in that manner. I told you, and I'll get into it more tomorrow night, this poll out, the annual Gallup poll, only 58% of American adults, a record low, say they are extremely or very proud to be an American. Look, if you don't like Trump, that does not have anything to do with the premise of America. You're proud to be an American because the set of things that make up America as the exceptional nation. Not Trump, not Biden. I despise what the Bidens were doing. But I still, if I took the Gallup poll, would answer extremely proud to be an American. Extremely proud of it. It's independent of all that. But that's not what we're seeing. It's the dwelling and it's the narrative they get in school that goes to the warts. And there are warts. But America learns, fixes things, and moves on. Isn't that the premise? Isn't that what we see? Why would you be this hateful toward it? Only 38% of Democrats say they were extremely or very proud, all-time low. I even have the numbers going back to the silent generation, Korean War, how high they were all the way up to now. Why is this? An array of factors. Scott Jennings' book, though, addresses that. It's warfare against Western civilization, not just America. America is the big guy protecting that. Final calls coming up, 833, the number 4, Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich Valdez here on America at Night. Let's go to Jeff, Nevada City, California, KNCO. Hey, Jeff, glad to get you on. Go right ahead. All right, let's go to Frank in Cumberland, Maryland, WCBC. Go ahead, Frank.
Dom, you left out the most important reason for not taxing the rich, and that is when you tax the rich, you destroy jobs. A long time ago, the government wanted to raise money, so they decided to tax the rich by putting a tax on yachts. And then they found out that the rich people stopped buying yachts, and they bought cars and airplanes instead. The people who got hurt were the working people who made the yachts, the architects and the craftsmen who built the yachts. Wealthy people, when they spend money, they provide progress and they provide jobs. Don't tax them because you're destroying progress and you're destroying jobs.
Frank, you know who you sound like? One of my idols from your station, Tom Marr. Always used to talk about that from WCBC. Yeah. So thank you, Frank. Thank you very much for that. Great stuff tonight, though. This book by Scott Jennings that I hadn't seen the title. Once we had him on and saw the title, it speaks to me of exactly what we're talking about here as far as the big, beautiful bill. Tomorrow night, who knows how this exactly is going to, can they resolve it? I don't know that they're going to resolve it by tomorrow. It gives them 1 day lead time. But if this goes past July 4th, I think we're in big trouble. They'll start dithering. Things will break loose. It's negotiable at this point. And I know there are a lot of voices in the House, Chip Roy and these others, people that I respect, that just won't go for this. I still respect Rand Paul. Massey, the guy in Kentucky, I think is a grandstander. Ron Johnson, I think, has gotten on board. That's evidence. So I think this is going to pass, but time, urgency is needed here, because if not, past July 4th, you're going to see the nonsense start again. What about this? What about that? That's where we're going to end up going. That's what always happens with this. But other than that, and this Idaho case that we talked about tonight, and this survey saying people are not extremely proud to be Americans, it has nothing to do with Trump or Biden or a president you liked or didn't like. I get it. When you have a Ronald Reagan restoring America, it lends itself toward thinking that way. But the core issue is not Ronald Reagan or Donald Trump or Obama. It's America, the American premise. Hey, thanks to Rich Good and thanks to Alex Sinton for producing tonight. Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich Valdez on America at Night on Westwood One.